Again, everyone. We're back again on the Orchestrator series, and today we are going to actually walk through the steps of how to build your own unattended robot. So, if you remember, we had started off, kind of playing around with the Orchestrator dashboard. So, we're going to take this a bit further. I'm going to sign out and then sign into an account that I created that's basically empty so that you can kind of walk with me on the journey through how it looks when the account is empty, right? Which is probably where you'll be. So I'm going to sign in using a different account, I think. Then, come on. So I imagine, if you haven't created your own account, you can go ahead and do that. All right. Go ahead and create your own account. Right. But when you log in, to create your account, you have to go to cloud.uipath.com, right? But when you log in, you're going to see something like this, right? And, again, the purpose of this exercise is to show you, that it's not as complex as it looks. So I'm going to click this second icon here and navigate to Orchestrator. And this is what you'll see. It's empty, but you can make it do anything you want to do, right? So if you go to the tenant workspace, you're going to find out that, you have the regular folders are all up here, and this is what it is, right? But if you go to manage access, you'll see that there's at least one account here that is automatically created as a shared, you can use this account. It's inherited, it's like default. So you can use this for the purpose of developing your own robots, unattended robots. So what you want to do is come here and edit this one. It's the one with the, your email there. You get one. And so you come here and then the first thing you have to do is you have to give it a role. You have to select a role among these. And you could, these are some of the things we talked about earlier on. There are a number of roles you could have, in an organization. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Like if I want the person to have administrative rights, I click that. If I want it to be, allowed to be a developer. So this is a function of really, what do you want, right? So you put all of those in. Then you go to the second tab here, and you want to make sure this is checked, okay? All right, very important. Then you go to the third setup. Well, again, you don't have to do it that way. You can click next, right? So you go to the third screen and you make sure this is enabled. And then you want to put in the credentials for this machine you're working on. And how do you do that? You go to your start bar and you type CMD to get the command line interface. It's nothing fancy. You just need to type who am I here. I'm going to give you the name of the PC, which is this one. You copy this, right? And you put it here. And whatever your username is, I'm gonna pause because I don't even remember mine. I use the pin code or face recognition to log in. So hold on, let me retrieve that and log in. So yeah, I got it, and you make sure you put the password in here. Not sure why all these ones keep popping up, but that's the password. Make sure that it's set to Windows credentials, right? And then basically you're saying you're giving it the credentials to use this machine as an administrator. And then you go to next. Robot settings. Okay, so I have to come back here, and I think that's the first. Let me just leave it as robot for now, okay? And then go next, next, next. And it's basically saying robots, they cannot be edited individually. Okay, so here we are. I can do whatever I like here. The rules that I want are important. I mean, that should be fine, right? I just want robots, developer for this case, right? And I hit update, right? So I've done that. And I basically said I wanted to have, oh, I didn't put administrator rights. Maybe I should do that. I think I forgot to add that. That was the third one. I think I allowed to be, sorry, my face is at a place that's in the way. I want administrator. I want that. Just to show you some flexibility, all right? It's not, I'm going to click update. Right, so I wanted to have all sorts of rights. You can reduce them or increase them, but I'm showing you how that's done. So after you've done this, you've basically given it assigned roles to it. And the next thing you want to do is you want to be signed into, make sure that UiPath Assistant, which you can open by just typing in your search. UiPath Assistant is actually connected. Now, I was connected to a different account. If you remember, I signed into a new one. So I want to make sure that, they are both in sync. So I'm doing that now. Hit sign in. It's asking me to sign in again. Yeah, always allow. So now, they're both in sync, right? Yeah, they're both in sync. So that's the next step. Make sure that you are, your UiPath Assistant is connected to Orchestrator. In our case now, if you recall, I was signed into somewhere else before. So that's really important. You don't want different accounts to be the situation. So I'm going to open an instance of UiPath Studio now, and just build a quick automation that we can use to test our robot. As you know, you might want to hit process, test automation, test the robot. Unattended. Configure, right? And then you create. Of course, this takes a few moments to set itself up, and then I'll just make like a simple automation where maybe just logs a message, right, and says hi there or whatever, But the idea is that we're running it from the orchestrator rather than pressing play from here or debug from here, right? That'll be the main difference. So I'm going to use that. For that, I'm going to use like log message. And then I'm going to use message box. So I might say, hello, unattended, but I don't want to make it complex. I am an unattended bot, right? And then, just put something to log its finishing. Again, these must be in double quotes. Pretty straightforward. And there's a log level info. Nothing fancy. Right? And this is basically an automation that is going to be triggered from the UiPath Orchestrator rather than from here manually at the development level. So now that I'm done, I can click save and then publish. And I hit publish, it's going to check, look for errors, and come here. So I can call it maybe draft one, sometimes it's good to put notes in case you make changes to automations. You put release notes. Then you go to next. I think this one's really important. It will, by default, it'll put it in your personal workspace feed. We don't want to do that. I want to put it, I mean, it's not a bad thing, but when you put it at the tenant level, it's kind of, at the organizational level. So I'm going to publish. So that takes a few moments. This is basically the automation we're going to run, but it's not going to be able to run unless we take certain additional steps. So back to the orchestrator screen. I'm going to come back here again. The next thing to do would be to, since we have ensured that it's connected to UiPath Assistance and we've also created the automation we want to use. Remember, I just published that, and this is now, if I hit tenants and go to packages here, you see testy robots here. Okay, very important, right? Now that you know where the automation is, we'll come back to it later. So the next step is to hit tenant. Make sure you're at the tenant level here, and then hit machines, and then you edit this machine. When you do that, what you're doing here, what you're here to do is just at least assign it one unattended license, one in production, and you hit update. Right? So after you've done that, I think just so that it's not boring, let's create a new folder. This is a chance. I think we did this earlier, but this is a new account. I might call this finance department for all the automations we want to run in this unit. We're trying to simulate a large organization that has many departments. And then we create. So the next thing to do at this level is, this is what we want to use, right? This is the folder we want to work with. So I come here, I go to settings, and I assign machines, right? And I'm going to find this template, the one we just gave a license to a moment ago, and make sure it's selected and hit update. You have to do it in this order. If you try to do it out of this order, you'll have some problems doing what I just did. Okay. So now that you've done that, you want to go back, you want to make sure you're still in finance department. This time you want to add a process. If I click on that, it will give you this drop down. You can search for the process that you want. Typically you have many, but this is just to give the folder access to this. When you combine a package and a folder, then you have a process, right? And then you click next. It's really nothing to do here, except make sure you don't have to give it a display name. Now that you've created, and you have the luxury of you can hit start now, or you can add a trigger, right? And what is a trigger? A trigger is, if we go, so that you don't get completely blinded. Then, we're working with this screen, right? So a trigger is a situation where, this is a trigger, right? You can set it up that, okay, I want add a new trigger, you call the trigger name. I think we went through this in one of the earlier notions and one of the earlier videos. But what this is for is if you want it to be running, say, at 12 noon tomorrow, and every 12 noon thereafter, make sure that you schedule it here. But in this case, that's not what that's not what this class is about, right? So we're just going to manually trigger it, right? So you have the option to set up, let this thing run at certain times of the day by using triggers. You can use time triggers and you can use day triggers. But that's not, like I said, that's not what we're going to do here. So you go to the process, which we just created. You make sure it's selected and you hit play. And then it's going to say, should I start? Which robot should I use? In this case, you have just one robot, right? Which machine? Same thing, only one machine. And basically just hit start. And it's going to run your robot. So the difference would be that you could set this up in the real world for me not to have to click play there. You could set it up that, okay, in 1 hour, just run, right? And so there you go. Remember, we put this at the process layer. So this is the purpose. If I click this, it's going to end, right? And if you wanted to see the logs, you could, just sort of go view logs of this job, right? And it will, if you remember, I made these notes here that, when it's finished, you should log this note, right? If you remember carefully, just a few minutes. So that's how you create an unattended robot. It's quite straightforward once you know what to do. So you've got to follow certain steps, and then, it's going to work just the way I've done it. So the process is make sure you create your automation, publish it to Orchestrator, and make sure that you give the folder you want to use access to it like we just did. So it's pretty straightforward, and I think this is a great place to stop before the video becomes too long. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have some clarity about how that is done. Bye.